This is a special meeting of board meeting of Tatum ISD. It is now 5:30 on September 6, 2023. We have a quorum. Mr. Skinner will lead the pledge of allegiance, followed by Mr. Crawford giving the invocation.
Pledge allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, we come to you today and we ask that you help us make good decisions as a board for our students, staff, faculty, that we keep things in your mind and in your thoughts. We ask that you help those that are sick and ailing, that are friends and family. And we do this in your name. Amen.
Okay, so this is it's all right with y'all, because I think we have 3 from each firm that signed up. I think one firm had 1 sign up for 3A, everybody else was 3A through F. So if it's all right, is it okay if y'all all speak when you present on your topic, Linebarger? Is that okay?
Yes, it should be fine.
McCray?
Yes.
Okay, so that way we don't have to stop, go down. Also, you don't have 3 minutes. We'll just give you some time. I mean, I'm not planning on setting time, but don't, try to limit it, as much as you can and everything. So that's for both firms, so.
I'll do you like I do at funerals. If you see me stand up.
So the first item, would be Linebarger, and I will put your PowerPoint on, and you can present. Sir. This off. Okay. Hold on. See what I do. Oh. Okay, get it right. Is the clicker working?
It's working fine.
Perfect. All right.
Appreciate it. Mr. Board President, members of the board, Dr. Richardson, again, Jim Lambeth with Linebarger Law Firm. We've had the great pleasure of working for this district with our name, partnership name, our law firm name, for 28 years, and then going back over 35 years with the firm that Cindy joined us with, which was Richard. We have with us the team that works this account, so we'll be introducing them as we go through. Just want to thank you and let you all know that we appreciate you. We appreciate your business. We don't take it for granted. Also, we want you to know that we want to earn your business every day and continue to earn your business. So we'll begin by just sort of talking about what we have in our presentation. We'll go to the collections team. We'll talk about our local presence, the delinquent tax calendar, just for reference, our collection program, and then we're going to primarily look at collection performance and then additional services that are benefits to the district. Then eventually we'll get to the executive summary and we'll talk to you about why you want to retain a Linebarger Law Firm for your delinquent tax collection work and the other benefits that we offer. Myself, capital partner, I've been with the firm for more than 25 years. I have worked in this business for 28 years. I come from the Smith County DA's office prior to working with the Linebarger Law Firm and manage this area. Stacy, sorry about that. Stacy is a
We can all
partner.
enjoy that picture.
That's right.
Many years ago.
Stacy's a partner with the firm, works all of the Rusk County contracts out of the Longview office, handles the day-to-day collections, all of the post-judgment collections, and has over 16 years' experience as both in the courts and as a collection attorney. We have Mr. Jent, capital partner, who also helps us as a backup. Mr. Jent's with us here today. He works out of both the Tyler office and the Coughlin office, managing areas and territories back to the west. But he also is a backup for Stacy and myself, as well as we have Allison Wiley, who's with us today. And Allison began working these accounts in about 2012, I forget the exact year-ish. And also now Allison, for the last 7 years, has been the director of our minerals department. And she works collecting minerals both on behalf of Tatum ISD and across the state. We have Bill Webster, our office manager, who has more than 30 years of experience working out of Longview and Tyler. Backup attorney Ben Cassie is also, he's with our firm and has been for over 5 years. Ben works out of the Tyler office, but whenever Stacy needs someone to be in court, then Ben is also there. Kim Perez, who is here with us, is our litigation manager. Kim is here on behalf of our firm, working litigation and all things related to litigation. So while she doesn't go out and do the client relations part of it, she doesn't do any of the in-court experiences. She's the one behind the scenes making sure suits get filed on all the direct accounts, and the suits are moving forward.
And we're going to talk more about the staff now, and Cindy Swan is the next one, and she is the area manager that works your account and has consecutively for 35 years. When she worked with Pritchard, she developed the first delinquent tax roll in the 80s, and her main desk is at the Rusk County Tax Office. So she is there every day to help the taxpayers come in. She's a member of several local chambers of commerce, and again, she has worked your role. She knows your accounts, your taxpayers, everything about your role. Cindy knows that 35 years of experience, it just can't be replicated. We also have Michelle Haley. She's here today, and she, I believe, has hit 15. I think that 14 has rolled over to 15 years of experience, and all of that has been on your accounts as well. She has a desk there in the Rusk County Tax Office and is there many days, and she is very familiar with your role, and she's a Rusk County resident here. We have Lee Ballinger, and she is a 2015 Tatum ISD graduate. Her daughter is not old enough for school yet, but will also attend Tatum ISD, and she is in the Rusk County Tax Office many days as well. So that is 3 employees that are there to help with taxpayers, to help the tax office, to make sure that all of the needs are being addressed, and just to add resources to your account to continue to work them and get the most collections in that we can. So we also have Dee Dee Holmes. She's the file manager, so she works closely with Cindy and myself and Michelle and Lee to work with the courts and to get everything moving. And she came from a court background, so she has been essential to communicate with the district court in both Rusk County and Panola, as y'all have accounts in both counties. Julie Wilson is in our Tyler office, and she's part of our bankruptcy division. So we have someone on site who can help with our bankruptcy questions. And then if they are work either out of Dallas or Houston, just depending on what region the bankruptcy goes into, but we have a very robust bankruptcy department to help on those accounts.
And our firm is a very large firm, but primarily what we are is an IT firm with a few lawyers. And so when we say that, what we're telling you is we use technology to our benefit. Our IT director, chief technology officer is Wayne Ballard. Wayne's responsible for all of our litigation, IT department, as well as our delinquent tax, which is our mailings and all of our other delinquent collections accounts. Carl Lewis is our director of IT, and Carl's job is to make sure all of the systems work together, the wires and the module modems and all the things wireless that we operate essentially daily. So we mention these folks because they're also a whole team of people in the background doing that work.
That's a picture from a few years ago of most of our office staff. And again, it says that we have 55 litigation clerks, collectors, bankruptcy clerks, 11 attorneys, and 3 are local. I know that we've talked about some of it. Jim is from Smith County. I am from Gregg County. We also have several other attorneys in the Tyler office and in the Longview office actually now too. So we have lots of people that are close, that are here and are not driving from a distance and are participating in your community. A lot of them are sitting here today, again, that we've already talked about. And we talk a lot about our staff because they are resources. We have more resources to add and to work on your accounts than any other delinquent tax firm. We have the largest staff of any other delinquent tax firm, and we have the most people here local that can get here when we need it, that can be in court, that can talk to the tax office, that can communicate with all of those people. And these are just more resources that we can devote to you firm-wide. Any given day, it could change a little bit, but we have about 120 attorneys firm-wide and over 1,200 employees. And as Jim mentioned, we have over 150 IT staff that helps keep everything so that we can handle the volume and keep your information and your data safe.
One thing I would note is our Northeast Texas operation is very much akin to the same size as the other firm.
This shows some entities that we collect for, all of the entities here in Rusk County, which means that they are consolidated collections currently at the tax office because it's all of the schools, the cities, and the counties here. This is a fun slide just to show a little bit of our involvement. Of course, many of our staff and attorneys have been able to attend the Tatum ISD Education Foundation, and they enjoyed that event. Lee Ballinger was able to play softball here and her graduation from Tatum, and that is certainly, we're very grateful for her and know that she had a great education, and we can see that in her smarts and efforts today.
Lee, what year was that?
2015.
2015. Let me talk just a little bit about the delinquent tax calendar, and we'll go back to it for reference. But one of the things that I want to kind of note is January 1 of a given year of the tax year is when those basis for ownership in value. Appraisal district puts that together, puts out the roll and certifies it July 25th. We just got through with that, so you now have your certified appraisal roll. Continuously after that, though, the appraisal district continues to make changes to the appraisal roll. So it's never a static individual snapshot that stays the same. It changes daily. Then on about October 1st, tax bills are collected. Your taxpayers will get that first tax bill. Roughly around January 31st, that's going to be the date, the last day to pay, unless it falls on a holiday or a weekend, it will flow to the next business day. And so we call that the delinquency date, but February 1st, taxes are delinquent. So at that point in time, they become delinquent, but they're not turned over to us to collect or any of the other firms until some date later, which is usually July 1st on most accounts. So you have May 1st is the date in which all of the taxpayers who are still delinquent will get a May notice for that tax year. And then on July 1st, those things are turned over to us. And that's the following July 1st. So we're talking about 18 months after the date of ownership and value. So it's the following year, roughly 18 months. This is a slide that shows our collection process. I'm not going to belabor it much. We're going to talk to you more about the litigation side, but I do want to point out a couple of things. One is we have another slide. We'll talk about some of our IT and our IT advantages. We have an economy of scale that cannot be matched by any other law firm because we are able to go out and purchase data at a much cheaper rate. We can do more address research. We can do more phone research. We can do a whole lot more with your tax roll at the beginning than any other firm can. We buy them for pennies on the dollar. The other firms we're working with billions of dollars, and the other firms are working with millions of dollars. And so there's just an exponential difference in the economy of scale that we bring. I'm not going to belabor it, but I can talk to you about this forever. I just want to let you know there's a whole lot more out there on the collections, even before the litigation begins. If you notice, let me go back to that just a little bit. If you notice, it all ends up with tax sales and resales. And so obviously collections at any point is a winner. If we start the process by getting that roll on July 1st and they pay on July 2nd, then that's a win. That's a pay. So anywhere in the process, the goal is to get those accounts paid. Obviously, throughout that goal, we're trying to contact taxpayers, but the goal is to get it paid. We like to say there are three things that have to come together when a account gets paid. First is the taxpayer has to know about it. We got to get a notice to them. That's where the address research goes into place. The second thing is they have to have a willingness or a want to get those taxes paid. We've got to motivate them to get those taxes paid. The third is they have to have the ability to pay. So we work with taxpayers so that we can get all three of those things to come together at the same time. So we have to know about it, we gotta get them informed, we gotta get them motivated, so our letters are more successive. If our letters don't work, we make phone calls and contacts personally. If that doesn't work, we follow lawsuit. So ultimately, to get it paid, all those things have to come together. If we do all of that and we still don't have the money, then we still don't have it paid. So the goal is to find all those things where we come together at once.
We also have many ways that we help the taxpayers. It is not just pay us, pay us, pay us. We have to talk to each individual because these are real people and this is their property and they are facing real hardships as they go along. And so we help them if they qualify for a deferral, whether it's a disability or over 65. We work with several local agencies to provide any kind of assistance, whether it's even just legal aid possibly, that they need an attorney to help them because we can't represent them. We don't offer legal advice and we can only help them, but we can't be their lawyer because we are your lawyer. We work with payment arrangements and hardship plans. There's all sorts of things that we attempt to do other than just force them into court and to sell the property. One of these tools that we have used is the Texas Homeowner Assistance Mailing. It is part of the American Rescue Plan Act that Congress passed back in 2021. And you can see the chart and it goes by zip code. So your zip code here for Tatum shows over $41,000 that has been paid as a result of that program. And we sent out letters to people that qualify for that program so they would know to apply for it so that money could come in to the district.
And we sent our letters targeted to those, there had to be homeowners, they had to have been affected only in the years that were involving COVID-19, 2021.
Have to be their homestead.
Right. And so all that had to come together. So we only targeted those people that we knew would fit the criteria and get them in to make their application. It's very interesting that the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs was charged with putting this program together. They reached out to our law firm for us to help them put the program together. We had to help them come up with the entire plan, and we did that successfully back starting in the end of around 2021. I've talked about some earlier technological highlights. I think this screen really shows you what we have here is primarily your data is safe. So we carry all the certification for very safe data. Your data won't get out there. We're not going to get hacked. We use that. We save that. We hope that never happens. So to keep that data safe and also keep your collections going, we have a comprehensive disaster recovery plan. We have on-site and off-site multiple backups. So we're live in all of our backups. Our units are up and running in multiple locations at one time. And we have written all of our own proprietary software collections program. We don't buy something off the shelf. So just want to let you know that.
I'm going to talk to you a little bit about mailings, and the reason we talk about mailings is because they are effective. We've already talked about how we look for addresses and how we reach out and get in contact with people, and once they know about it, they have to know about it to pay it. And so mailings are one of our collection tools. We're talking about collections here, and this is one of the tools and one of the ways we work on collections. So during this time period, from July 2018 through June 2023, we have mailed out more than 170,000 warning notice letters, and every letter increases. The first one says, hey, here's a debt, and then the severity increases. It lets them know that it's getting more and more serious as they get this series of letters. And that total amount in all of those letters was over 29 million. And you can look on here, and it shows the dates that we mail. In Rusk County, they send out mailings about 5 to 6 times a year. We send one as soon as we get the roll in July. That's that new roll, the new data, because it's new accounts that are on there. And sending out, and we send out again in August, September, and throughout the year. And the mailing program is very successful. We get many, many phone calls, many checks mailed in with a copy of the letter on it. It has been a very active, a very robust mailing program, and it is, again, very successful.
One of the things we do when we do our mailing program is we're doing continuous address research. We look for multiple addresses to find the same person. We also look for run all of the address where we have return address or no address on the account. We look for multiple persons. So we may do more than one letter to a single address or to a single taxpayer because we come up with multiple addresses. Again, it's creating a contact point where they know about the taxes in order for them to get it paid. So we've had several successful collections. I want to talk about this one tax warrant that we ran. We did this in May of last year. And when we ran this tax warrant, what's important and comprehensive about this is we collect in all of the counties, Rusk and Smith, that this particular taxpayer was located in. This taxpayer had property in Bow Ark and also had property over in New London. Because they had property in more than one county, we did not know which county we were going to have to seize these vehicles in. We got information that the bank was about to repossess and had already started gathering up some of the properties that they had a lien against. Our lien is superior, so if we get there first, we can seize it and sell it. We ran the tax warrant both in Smith County and in Rusk County, and had both the district courts file the tax warrants in both district courts, had both district courts issue those warrants, and called both sheriff's offices to help us to run it. Only a firm that is working in both of those counties can you do that. Only a firm that has the relationships with the sheriff, the relationships with the courts, and we got that done in one afternoon. One afternoon, we collected $100,000 on this particular account. And so that works where you have consolidated collections and you're working in multiple counties.
To continue to talk about the tax warrants, there is another one here in Rusk County that was very successful. It's the Legend Energy Services. And again, as Jim mentioned, it covered 2 counties. The first place that we served the tax warrant was actually in Gregg County in Kilgore, but there were taxes owed to both counties. And again, it is important to have a firm that is in both counties and working with both counties and has the ability to coordinate and talk to the sheriffs. This one, he also mentioned repo men and banks, and that is a real possibility in these business personal property tax warrants because it's not a home or dirt. These things can drive off or be driven off. And we actually served this tax warrant. It was in May 17th, 2021. And I was there that day, and less than 30 minutes after we arrived, the repo men had showed up. And they were furious because they were there to drive off all the vehicles. They wanted to take them back to their lenders to sell it to recover their investment. But since we were there first, everyone was paid in full. We had been previously working with that company before on a payment agreement. The minute they stopped on that, when they were not communicating and not making their payments, that is when we move forward with the tax warrant. Again, there are no one size fits all to collect any of these accounts. And so it takes time and effort and knowledge of the role and knowledge of the taxpayers to get them paid. And we knew that they had been communicating, they had stopped, and that it was time to move forward. And it was good timing because we would not have been able to collect successfully had it been an hour later. Litigation is another tool, a very important tool, and you never know what pressure point it's going to take. As Jim mentioned, you have to have all the things that align to get them paid, and one of the pressure points that some people need is litigation. Not everyone needs that. Some respond from the letters, as we mentioned. Some respond from a personal phone call, but for those that are not successful or completed, then we move to litigation. And you'll see again, it's the same time frame that we have up there, and it's going to tell you how many suits were filed on 184 accounts. Each suit may have more than one account in it. It may have 21 accounts. It may have 33 accounts. There's a lot of the taxpayers have more than one account. And so that petition amount on those 184 accounts was $396,589. Out of those, 72 accounts were paid. So those are dismissed from the suit. And that totals $129,424. We took judgments on 120 accounts, $209,269. Judgments paid, so we took the judgment and then it was paid before sale, 57 accounts, $78,882. We still have suits on that are currently open on 119 accounts for $340,025. So these are suits that we have filed here, not just in Russ County, this also includes the portion that is in Panola County, and it is when we have exhausted our other efforts, when they need to have that other pressure, and when we need to even, and sometimes there's no other option. We talk about pressure, but if no one is alive to speak to, we have to file a suit in order to get it moved into a sale.
One thing I want to note is as of June 2023, this year, you had about $600,000 in delinquency. 340,000 were under active suits.
Tax resales. The sales are what happen at the end of the litigation. When we try to collect, we try to get a judgment, we try for betters. If that doesn't work, we move to judgments. And so to get payment of the taxes, penalty and interest, we advertise and post properties for sale. During this period, there have been 127 tracts that have been, that we have collected $1.7 million for Tatum ISD. We have a very robust tax sale here in Russ County. Everything is consolidated, so the tax sales are very large. It's everyone's property that are getting sold. There are multiple sales a year. We don't ever miss the sales. 2020 in a tax year, in a COVID year, we had to push one sale, but that is the only instance. And then again, this year, we would traditionally have a sale in July, but July 4th was a Tuesday. So we pushed the sale to August this year as a decision to make sure that we still had plenty of people that were able to attend and not confused coming on the holiday or the day after. And again, these are very well attended and large dollars come in on these tax sales. People are very interested in the properties that we post.
I want to point out our online tax sale portal. It's at lgbs.com. You would go to Tax Sales Texas and then look up Russ County or Tatum ISD or City of Tatum, whichever entity you want to look at. And it will pull up a map of all of those accounts that are available for a tax sale. It will pull up accounts that we have suits on and judgments on ready for a tax sale. It will tell you if it's a current sale, the date of the sale. It will also tell you resales and the date of the sale or the process for a resale. And so that's available online. We've had that online for about 5 to 10 years. I think it's about 5 years on this version of it. And so all of that is to inform the public. Also, if you're an interested buyer, you go in on that particular website and you enter your email address and you will get a push email every time something happens on that account moving it to a sale. So you get a push email prior to the account being listed for sale.
These are your top 20 accounts, and you'll notice it says tax year 2021. Jim went over the calendar earlier, so we are talking about 2021 because that is what we were able to work on last year. It takes a while before they are turned over to us, and so 2021 feels like a long time ago, but it was just last year's efforts on Tatum ISD. And there are several that I want to talk about and explain the process to the lawsuit, and that there are, again, we use tools. We have to figure out what the pressure point is for each person and how to get that paid. The top account on there has been paid in full. And actually on that taxpayer, we've had multiple lawsuits over the years. We had one back in 2014 that we filed, and we took a judgment on that one. That particular one had 21 accounts. The 2014 lawsuit did. Those 21 accounts at the time of judgment had an $85,000 judgment. And between the judgment and now, all of that entire judgment has been satisfied. Some of it was satisfied by payment after the judgment, so some of the tracts did not go to sale. They were paid by the taxpayer, and then some of the tracts were sold at the tax sale, and then some did not sell. So we didn't stop there. The ones that did not sell, we filed an abstract of judgment on those amounts because we continue to work all of the time to collect these amounts. It is not done at judgment, it is not done at a tax sale. And that abstract of judgment was paid and released in January of this year. So that entire judgment amount, that entire $85,081.28 has been paid. The same person is listed at number 2. And again, there's multiple account numbers. And a second suit was filed on those accounts in 2021. The previous judgment was paid. Some years went along, they became delinquent again. We filed another lawsuit. The first original petition, I believe on that one, had over $67,000 that were owed. I'm not talking about a judgment because it did not go to a judgment. It has been paid in full, so there's no need for a judgment on that one. There were 6 accounts on that one. multiple defendants, IRS liens. It is not the process for every suit is different. And you can't say that every suit or every account should be treated the same, but we continue to work and continue to file suits when necessary. We continue to collect after the suit, even if it was not paid at the sale. The numbers 3 and 4 are also in a lawsuit that are set for trial in November of this year. That particular suit has over 33 defendants and 26 accounts. We have filed 5 different amended petitions in that one. We have lots and lots of undivided interest in that one, and that is very common, especially in minerals and families that have owned land or property for many years. As it's passed down, there are partitions, family members own the accounts together, and it gets more and more complicated. And the amended petitions, I mentioned that we have had 5 amended petitions, because as we discover new information, we have to amend that petition. We have to, by law, make sure that everyone that has an interest in that lawsuit is notified of it and has an opportunity to appear and make any claims that they feel are appropriate for them. And when we're dealing with that many defendants, we might have started out with 20, but after we have served all of those 20, one of those 20 might have passed away. And then we have to serve their heirs because they are no longer alive. And so it can take some time to resolve all of that. And it's also complicated when you have, again, those undivided interests, and to figure out which of the account numbers are paid and which are not. A phrase that Jim uses and we hear all the time is, we are putting the world back together. So you start out with one account number, and then you start looking at the accounts that are in the same area, and then you start figuring out the same names, but different family members. And it's like putting a patchwork quilt together until you have the end result. On this particular one, there is an ad litem involved, and the ad litem makes sure that we are aware of the people that have passed away, or if they've been able to find an address that we didn't have to attempt service, because we try to serve them at an address, and if that's not it, we go to the next address. But sometimes people are not likely to respond to our letters or to our phone calls because they see us as the bad guy. But they might talk to the ad litem. They might not. The ad litem might not have any more success either. And so it turns into a long process that puts together a final result at the end.
So the judge can't sign the judgment until the ad litem is satisfied that we've attempted all due diligence in finding each of these persons. So often the ad litem will become a bit of a barrier, but also another person to help us find those individuals. So sometimes it takes many, many court dates and settings before we can get those judgments. Let me talk to you just a little bit about what we would call a reject title. It's a title that we have gone to the appraisal district and there is no deed to that property. So this particular account is one of many that you have in your roll. There's no deed to the property, meaning that property was 120 acres in the 1880s. There have been 4 children. It got divided into 4 different other parcels, but there was a piece of it that never got divided out or sold. So now we have to not go to just that 1 40-acre tract that's delinquent on the roll. We have to go to the entire 120 acres, and we have to look at every deed in the 120 acres. Look at every one of those deeds. We have to map each of those deeds and make sure we're not selling someone else's property, because remember, we don't have a single deed to our 40 acres that's delinquent. We have possibly hundreds of deeds that we have to go through. We will not sell property until we are satisfied that we are selling the right property. I promise you, that is a problem that you don't want, and that's a problem we don't want. There's no rush in one of these airship properties. If there is a rush, you will have problems, and you will not know you have a problem until you have a tax lien.
You'll see several say deferral. The deferral is a statutory right that taxpayers have, and they can qualify at the appraisal district if they meet certain qualifications. It has to be their homestead. They have to be over 65. They do have to fill out an application. It does not mean the taxes are uncollectible. It means that we can't collect them right now. They are going to continue to grow. We have an aging population. 65 used to be a lot different. People are healthier and living longer, and those deferrals are growing across the state as people that qualified at 65 and maybe would have passed away in their early 70s are living much longer. So those amounts are growing, and again, they are not uncollectible. They are uncollectible right now.
In June, on your roll, $600 and something thousand were due. about 40% of the dollars were in.
We have, number 7, we have already taken a judgment on that. We will have the sale in December, and it will be included in the December sale. The next one has been paid. There were over 45 accounts in that one. The one after that has also, we have a suit filed, and it had numerous accounts in it. Some of the accounts have been paid, some are still making, not paid, and so we will continue with that suit and proceed to judgment if necessary. The next one, there is only one account left that has a balance, but most of them have been paid. The next one says suit filed awaiting service. And we've talked about service here, and it's important to kind of understand that that is one of the processes that adds time to our collection efforts. So once we identify people that have an interest, they do have to be served, and we attempt personal service when we can to make sure that they have a copy of it in their hand, whether it was certified mail where they signed a green card and we know that that right individual received it, not a 16-year-old at the house that threw it in the trash or stuck it under a pile, or a tenant at a home that has no interest in it. If not that, in some areas, a constable or a sheriff will attempt personal service. They may go out, they may be home, they may not. If that doesn't work, we have alternative service that we attempt, and finally we can do a citation by posting, as we have talked about, where the ad litem gets involved and helps see if they can find someone that we can't. But all of that can take time to achieve that service, which is required on people.
I was just wondering when the suits were filed.
I don't have the dates on that one. I believe Hazel Cox is a Panola County suit, and I could certainly get it to you. The suits are filed all year long. So it is, we get the roll in July. We try not to overwhelm the district clerk. I don't believe any suits have been filed in the last week and a half since we've been here. That's
No,
part of the
I was just
question.
wondering if those were in 2021 or.
no, and I don't have the suit number off the top of my head. Like the Archie Bell one was filed many years ago.
Okay.
I don't know when Hazel's was filed off the top of my head. But again, if we can't file, we could. It would not be wise or helpful to the district clerk if we filed all the suits at once. And so we generally work the top down. Those top amounts make the biggest difference to your books and to all of the entities that we collect for. And so we try to go in waves so that they are not having to process all of the suits at one time, because the district clerk does have several steps on their end when suits are filed to take care of and process the suit. File market, get it into a file, create a file. It goes to the district court at that point in time. Once it's out of our hands, there are other people that have to complete their job.
We are the #1 filer in the district courts in Russ County. So that's the conversation we were having about the Shivers account. Again, on the most recent filing, over $100,000 collected. And then again, we were talking about the both Archie Bell and Arsenio Bell estate. Both of those are together in a single lawsuit. All of that, that shows you, I guess, it was filed in 12, amended again in 22 for the last time. And so again, it's a special title project with additional defendants that we can have.
We're talking a lot about the lawsuits and the litigation, and we talked briefly now about the district clerk. And it's important when we talk about the litigation that you talk about the impact of the suit, because it is not just on the district clerk, which it is. So when we file suits as an extension of the government, we don't pay that filing fee until everything is collected. So the district clerk is having to bear that cost. They're also having to add the paperwork, and the district court is having to handle all of that. It requires additional service for the sheriff's office or the constables that are out there serving it. And we've said this before, but these are real people. These are people that may only owe $200, $42, $62. That court costs are going to be at least $350. And very often it is much more than that, because you are talking about the filing and then the cost of service are added on top of that. So it is not uncommon to see $700 in court costs. And if you're filing on the little bitty amounts, the burden that you are putting on someone who owes $140 or $162 very quickly turns into $1,000. And then there's no guarantee that those are sold. There's no guarantee that that is creating any additional revenue. So litigation is an important tool, but it's not the only tool. And there's a lot of people along the line that we consider when we are filing suits.
Do you have a minimum amount that you would say, okay, if it's less than $1,000, then we're just not gonna file?
No, we don't have a set minimum. Certainly if they're delinquent, we can file suits on
You
them.
just kind of use common sense, right?
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
we orient the roll every year in July from top to bottom. So from highest dollar down, so it's kind of a reshuffle. And then those accounts that we don't have a suit on, they'll rise to the top. And we'll work your plan based upon how many dollars you have total to. And then our threshold for filing a suit by the end of the year, if we've not collected it, may get down to between $1,500 and $1,000. It doesn't mean that we won't look at some of those accounts, in particular if they're a problem account that has multiple years to file some suits on those.
Or if they're repeat people that we feel like if it gets too much more large, that they won't be able to catch up, that they need to feel the pressure then. And so again, some of that benefit is Cindy and Michelle that know those people. They have seen the role for 35 years and 15 years, and they know who has never been on there late before and who's been on there 5 or 6 times, who's been on there every year. There are a lot of factors that go into it. And again, sometimes there's problem accounts, schools, especially if there is a property that is close to a school bus stop that children are having to go by. There's all kinds of factors that can go into the decision making.
You know, on individual accounts like that, you know, you have to make those decisions based upon all of the factors. And so, you know, we do try to weigh them very carefully.
I'm going to say one more
Yes.
thing, I'm sorry. Jim talked about the $1,500 and $1,000. And again, as we talked about continuous filing all year round and not just all at once in July or all at once in June at the end of the year, that $1,500 he's talking about would just be like itemized DC ones. So right now it is consolidated. They are getting a bill and we are seeing a roll that shows your amounts, the counties and the cities if it's inside the city limits. And so those amounts rack up sooner when we are looking at a consolidated tax bill because they are all added together. So they are filed on sooner when the amount is bigger, when they are all consolidated and aggregated.
At what point does Tatum ISD receive that collection roll, you know, whoever is past due? I mean, we're just now seeing this for 2021. And I personally believe that this board or Dr. Richardson is going to know our residents better than Russ County clerk because they don't know them the way we do.
Certainly, y'all are here in the community and dealing with people that maybe we don't see on a regular basis. And if you want to see it at any time, I mean, anybody can get onto the website and see individual accounts or get a roll or freedom of information request. So if you are asking when the school could see reports, if you would like a report, a set month every year, we could certainly do that. August is a great time to go because we can report on the full prior year. So it's a whole calendar year of effort because a 3-month period isn't enough to tell you about what's been going on that year. But, you know, so and then you're talking about too far back if you're going too far into the year, and we would certainly be happy to come regularly, or if y'all say, well, we don't want to set the exact month, because there are gonna be months when y'all have more on your plate than others, and you don't need any additional time here committed to this. And you
I
don't-
think it's just being aware, just so that the board is aware of who's on the delinquent tax report.
Because I'm looking at this list and I see some Pinellas County residents on
Yes,
here.
ma'am.
And so this has been piling up. You know, I mean, it's maybe that it should have been to where, you know, you were thinking, oh gosh, you know, they're not getting a consolidated one. You know, Pinellas County doesn't get a consolidated.
So if the Tatum ISD portion that is in Panola County is collected in the Russ County tax office.
Right.
So this is an approximate number, I don't have the exact number, but there's about 60,000 parcels in Tatum ISD, and about 50,000 of them are in Russ County, and the other 10,000 are in Panola. But those 10,000, so they're not getting their county bill, the portion of their taxes that are going to Panola County. They are not getting that from Russ County, but they are getting their school bill from Russ County.
So the Pinellas County residents would be getting a separate
Right,
bill from
yeah, I
Russ
live
County.
in Pinellas County, so I get separate.
Yes.
And so from the school, but I'm sitting there thinking, wow, there was quite a bit of money on here.
Mhm.
That's Pinellas County.
Mhm.
You know, I'm just wondering, well, should we, you know, mark them and attack them sooner? Or, so, I don't know, it just seems like they're added up.
Well, there's plenty of them, but yes, we file suits in Pinellas County. We have many suits in Pinellas County. And continue to. When we get our roll up, and I think it's answering your question, when we get our delinquent roll from the tax office, we get the Panola and the Russ together as the Tatum ISD delinquent.
And I work both Rusty and
Right.
Panola, and it's not the only account I work in Panola either, so I am over there working with, that tax office as well. This is a chart to show your status of account. It will show what portion is in suits, what portion is deferral, and that is the deferral, this is the number of accounts, not the dollars. So when Jim mentioned earlier the dollars as of June, that's a different percent than the number of accounts that hit your deferral there. There is over 33% that is there in the active collections. There is a good chunk of any roll that's less than $250, and that's over 18% here. So those are accounts that their bill is less than $250. There's a small portion in bankruptcy, and then there's a portion of return mail, and a lot of that is very common with minerals, and y'all do have a lot of parcels that are minerals. And so that return mail, the way that minerals are added to the roll and the accounts and the addresses, it creates more bad addresses.
Now let's,
What year was that for?
oh, this is a snapshot, I believe, of August, is that correct? Yeah. August download that we got from the Russ County tax office.
So it's right now.
Around 1st of August. Okay, moving on into collections, and really, in the end, this is where the rubber meets the road. What is your TEA collection rate? We use that because the Texas Education Agency has set that standard. So you report through your audit that the board approves every year, roughly around or just before February 1st, and it gets filed with TEA. From that, you have a J1 delinquent receivable, and from that receivable, there's a formula that TEA sets out and determines what your collection rate is for each school district. TEA sets that standard. On your financial accountability report, you need to be greater than 98% in order to get all of the scores that you need for that. And this is the TEA collection rate for each of these school districts showing in comparison. Note, at 123.7%, this is a 5-year average. So you had 1 year in which you were a TEA adjusted collection rate of over 500%. The reason you were there is because the appraisal district has backed off value. And that all goes back to the energy transfer or Lumen bankruptcy. So because of that, asterisk it, put it down the bottom, and there you can see we put 101.52% if it's unadjusted. Neither of those numbers are exactly comparable because you did collect, and the TEA does separate at 123.7, but you can use 101.52, and you can insert that, and you're still doing better than any of the rest. So you're an A+ district. You use that as your motto. You know, here, this is the score. This is the end of the season. This is all the games put together. You have come out on top. You are one of the best collected school districts in this whole region. And I look at numbers from South Texas to North Texas and from West Texas to East Texas. In the East Texas area, you're at the top. You have an excellent collection rate. Now, that's a 5-year average. So we didn't pick 1 year. We didn't pick and choose. We tried to put a whole group of years together. So I just wanted to show you that, and that shows you where you are against those other very similarly situated districts. Now, let's look at what happened in Longview ISD. These are raw dollars, okay? And these are raw dollars. You'll look at those year to year from the year in which they were formally collected by the other firm and then collected by us. That's a 27% increase, $260,000 in additional revenue. It's raw dollars. And so we use that often to show increases, but raw dollars are that's just a snapshot of a single year. Here is another district that has switched to using our firm. And again, this one is TEA collection rates. So I'm using the TEA collection rates here to show you what their collection rate is, and it increased. That one is an increase of about, let's see, a couple of percents there, or a point of a percent. I think it was about 0.50 or something like that. Not a huge increase, but an increase. So I took the year of the transfer because it happened sort of mid-tax year, and that's that middle number, that 97%. And so year over year, those are the comparisons. And then here's a comparison of Trinidad ISD. And on that one, in that comparison, if you'll notice, we've got the 2 years, and it's about 0.5% increase for better. Again, TEA numbers. So the interesting thing about TEA you kind of have to understand is that's a percent of your total levy collected within the fiscal year, counting all of your currents plus your delinquents, no penalty interest. This next chart shows going back when our firm was hired to collect for the Van Zandt County Schools. It's a 2.22% interest over those years, year over year, and the equivalent, if you had that same 2.2% increase in terms of Tatum ISD, that's an additional $211,000 revenue for a Tatum ISD. Notice not every district went up, but overall the average is up. And then here's the Cherokee County Schools, and when they chose the other firm, overall there was a 0.50% decrease. And in terms of Tatum ISD, that's a $47,500 revenue loss if you drop just a half of a percentage in your TEA collection rate. And then this is looking at delinquents only. So if you go back to the TEA rate, that's looking at what percentage of your tax levy was collected. Now we're looking at what percentage of your delinquents were collected. So in this one, the Cherokee Schools saw a decrease of 4.1% in their TEA roll year over year, roll over year. That would be an equivalent to a $32,000 loss if that were multiplied against Tatum's rollover on that. Again, not every one of them were exactly down the same, but they were all down overall, and that's the overall average, 4.1% decrease. So those are collection rates. Those are comparison collection rates, and those are school districts that have changed. Now, again, what I think is most important about your TA collection rate and your rollover rate is all of this is auditable. You can go back to your J1 and look at those. Those J1 reports can all be computed, and you can recapture those same amounts. Now we're talking about the property value audits. I'm going to show you White Oak ISD, which is represented by the other firm in the property value audits. Notice for each of those years, Tatum ISD had a property value audit filed, except for those years where it wouldn't help you. And so we filed property value audits for you for a total reduction in value of about $12 million, for a total state gain or recapture reduction of $84,500. We file them every year. We didn't miss years. There are no missing years. There are no missing revenue. To a gain of $84,500. This is a comparison of 3 of the firms on the property value appeal. So there's 2 parts. There's really 3 parts, but we're going to talk about 2 parts to the property value audit system. Audits are where you go in and you file a self-report, and that's any changes that the appraisal district has made that would benefit your district that we would file with TEA for you. Property value study appeal is where you fall out of the property value study. And so this is the sort of relative size or amount of property value studies that are filed by each of the firms each of these years. And it shows you sort of the relative size of those firms and the amount of property value studies that they perform.
Another service that the school may not even be aware of is a homestead exemption audit that Linebarger performed for the appraisal district. So it was a process to go and look at all of the homesteads in Rusk County and see if they qualify to still be a homestead. The homestead gets additional tax relief and a tax break. So it makes a significant impact on your tax revenue if there is a homestead that should not be on the roll. And so they would look for things like multiple homesteads, because if 2 people get married, they both cannot have a homestead, they can only have one. If your parents passed away and you inherited their home, you cannot claim a homestead on theirs and the one you were living in. And they examined 12,704 accounts that had homestead exemptions. And they removed exemptions on 110 accounts. And they were 45 deceased homeowner cases, 29 multiple homesteads, and 36 non-resident. You have to, there's laws on what can qualify as a homestead and what can't. You may not be in it right now, but you have to have an intent to return. And so those would be the non-resident cases. And you can see the results right there. And that resulted in an additional $34,697.52 to Tatum ISD. That was real dollars that came in. There is also potentially future money that's not able to be calculated because we don't know what happens after the homestead is removed. If they sell the property and someone buys it that doesn't keep it as a homestead, then the additional revenue will continue to come in. But if someone buys it who is able to claim it as their homestead, then it changes. The role is an ever-changing, ever-breathing thing that doesn't, it's not a constant amount at any given point in time.
Let's talk a little bit about that limit of bankruptcy. I mentioned it last time. It was a $1 billion problem statewide. In Russ County, over $10 million worth of taxes. We collected for you an additional $6,404,799 for $979. All of that with no cost. Our contract allows us to charge our collection fee for that. We did not. We did not charge a collection fee on that. That would have been an additional $200,000 had we charged a collection fee on that bankruptcy. You know, overall, if you add these things up, it's very consistent. The TEA collection rates are very consistent. They're auditable. They can be, you can go back and verify all of those numbers. If you use those TEA collection rates, you could see, or you do see, an additional $67,000 to $200,000 in higher collections, simply because you do have a very good collection rate. If that rate were to suffer, you would see that those funds go away. That would be a loss to the district. We, in our property value study, we consistently have higher gains. We have a much more comprehensive service. There are many more people that work in our property value study division. If you ever have a problem with the property value study, you just need to understand that could be a very, very expensive property value study problem, if you will. And I want you to know we will offer that property value study at no cost. I think that has been tossed around. I think that's something that our competitors have mentioned, but I will warn you, and I will say this, you have to be careful that you are getting that full service. If you notice that White Oak slide that I showed you, no audits were filed. And so they are missing those funds. Also, in a bankruptcy, we waive $128,000 in fees. That's not a problem. We do that on almost every bankruptcy. We do not ask for our fees to be paid on bankruptcies. If there were a particularly litigious bankruptcy that required an extended amount of expert witnesses or something like that, or travel, we might have to visit with you about that, but we have consistently waived those. So there are numerous other bankruptcy cases that we've collected, we have waived those fees. Our combined collections that you get with the Russ County Tax Office, where your bill is with the city bill and your bill is with the county bill, is a benefit to your taxpayers. It's a benefit to your collections. And it's a benefit to the courts and the clerk's office whenever we file suits, that everybody's together in one suit. And it's advantageous to you in collections. So it is not only good for us as collecting attorneys, but it's also good for you in that you're going to get the benefit of all those bills being added together for a single lawsuit. Ultimately, too, it's a benefit to your taxpayers. So when taxpayers get delinquent, they don't really need to be receiving notices from multiple law firms, and that would be what would happen if you were to not rehire us. Again, Relentless Collections, our local team, we have introduced to you tonight all of them except for Jeanette Centers. Jeanette's children came to school here at Tatum ISD. They graduated from Tatum ISD. She lives in Lakeport, and she chose Tatum ISD for the benefits of the school. And then finally, we are very dedicated community sponsors.
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I've got one. Go back to your collection rates.
Yes.
You said that was a 5-year.
That TEA 5-year? Yes, sir.
That's gonna include 2018, when we settled with London.
Yes, that's why that you have that 123.7. And then I asterisked it and took out that 101.52 that did not account for the reduction in value for them.
Because there was approximately 10 million that came off the tax roll in value.
Mhm.
And that's not 10 million collected.
Right.
That's 10 million just came off.
Right.
So that's what that 123 is representing, but your asterisk
Yes,
takes that.
that's right. The 101.52 doesn't, so you have an adjusted, you're allowed to file, you're allowed to report your TDA adjusted roll. And that's provided that you've gone over there and taken all the adjustments the appraisal district produced. You're also going to need to file an audit to make sure that was done, or the appraisal district could have done that for you in their report depending upon when the correction of the roll occurred. That's why the audit is important.
Well, and
You also may report your TA collection rate as unadjusted, where you don't account for any adjustments to the roll. 101.52 is the unadjusted.
And you're talking about changes in value, which is addressed through these property value audits and the slide that showed all of that. And one thing they did mention, he talked about going forward, but one thing he did mention is in the past, that has been a percentage, and it's only been a percentage of the gain. So for 2017, there was $21,500 in gain. So that 10% is $2,000, $2,100 is what the bill was for that at that time. I know we talked about moving forward, but I want to make sure y'all know about what it was in the past. So it was $2,000 to gain $21,000. So it was still a net gain of $19,000. And those are a result of changes to the roll that happened.
Yeah, I think we heard some number, like 600,000 piece paid for property value study. You've never paid that much.
Grand total of all of these years was less than $9,000 paid for all of these years on the property value audit.
And you got to file an appeal to get money back. Just want to leave that on the table.
So on your top 20 of our most wanted list, I guess, so to speak, two of those being the top, I mean, how are you figuring if this person goes out and they just want to sell their house? I mean, I know there may be a suit filed or whatever. I mean, they happen to be my clients, and so I was part of them for helping you collect that. So
Yes.
are you considering real estate sales, whether it be private or through a brokerage representing them to help sell that property?
Often, taxes are paid.
Because I mean,
Title
Yeah.
company, so I mentioned the abstract of judgment because the previous lawsuit in 2014, all of it was not paid after we were done with the sale. So we took, I think the abstract at the time was about $12,000. We file that in the deed records. And when transactions are closed, whether it's on that property or just on that individual, those abstracts are paid. And that is a very successful, you would be surprised. And again, that abstract was from many years ago, but it just got paid. So as those transactions are happening, our lien is secured as of January 1. The law says that the lien is there January 1. And so if it is closed at a title company or through a bank, those are very often paid that way. So that those dollars are coming in to us. So they're getting paid through the tax office and are reflected on your audits and on our accounts.
and not necessarily y'all filing suit and selling it at the courthouse steps, so to speak.
Correct. Some of them are not paid through, I mean,
Right.
people may only have it listed, and I don't know the particulars of your client on that one, but people may only have it listed because we said, hey, we're gonna sell it if you don't. And in theory, it should get much more in an arm's length transaction than it would on the courthouse steps. On the courthouse steps, they are getting a sheriff's deed, they have to pay that day, there's all sorts of things that make it where it doesn't sell for market value on the courthouse steps.
So if I'm understanding your question, are you asking, do we get paid that way?
No, well,
I
I'm
can't
just,
count for the numbers.
is this part of, like, at the time we listed some properties, I didn't realize that we were under that. I was notified once we did that, but it wasn't that I feel like, hey, you know, we're gonna go out, we're gonna take your property, and we're gonna sell it at the steps, and then that's gonna show up on this rate. It didn't really happen that way on those, but it's just, and I guess I know y'all are a big firm, you got a lot of people and, you know, if someone's out, they can cover. Well, on one of these sales, we had to wait a week and a half to close because someone was absent to sign off. And that's a problem. Because when you have a lender sitting there, you know,
Sure.
and so so while we have big groups of numbers of people working,
What month
it
did you,
didn't benefit that taxpayer that particular week.
what month did you close?
It's still several parties, so it'd probably be May,
Okay.
Well, and there could
June,
be,
somewhere in that
there
time.
could be other parties involved in waiting on, we might be waiting on, a dollar amount from the district clerk on how much the district clerk fees are. It might not just, and I don't know the particular suit you're talking about.
This
I
was mainly
certainly
just one
will-
person. We
I
just
have-
had someone else to sign on.
Yes, anytime that you're not getting something, because people are sick, family members are sick,
Mhm.
there are all kinds of things that can happen. We would certainly encourage you to reach out to our main office, to me, to Jim, to Wade. I think several of y'all have lots of our cell phone numbers, and we can get the information, even if we're not the right party that would have got it, because there are things that, there are vacations, of course, there are sicknesses, there are other people we're waiting on information from. Sometimes, at different times throughout the year, the tax offices don't have access to their software, to their computers based on updates that are happening. So there's any number of reasons that might have caused that, and certainly,
And I
we don't want,
understand that. I mean, as long as that can be told, that somebody
absolutely,
else can sign off, that we have.
Well,
yes.
my guess is, and I'm hearing the word sign off, so my guess is the title company wanted a release of land, a release of abstract before they close. Often they just get an email from us and then we prepare and file that. And so different title companies work differently. And so, you know, often we rely upon that email that says we're going to do that upon being paid. And it does depend on what the title company chooses to do. Most of ours will close on an email, as long as we both understand.
I just want to make sure that you all, or now that I know that we can get a second person that if one person is absent, because it almost stopped the whole thing.
Mhm.
And then we'll just start it all back over again and nothing would have been collected.
It's very frustrating, especially if you're the person who's waiting for your money or wanting to move into your new house, so absolutely.
And often the title company doesn't tell us until about the day before closing. And I'm trying to do my best to educate them. You know, we're not gonna have a one-day turnaround. I wish we could, you know, because I've got to have a secretary or a manager create that document. It's gonna be signed by us. And that document's gonna have to be e-filed, which is another wrinkle in the program in Texas.
The district clerks have 24 hours usually to accept your filings. Sometimes it's immediate, sometimes it's not within the 24 hours. And again, it will depend on what else is going on in
Right.
we
And I
don't
promise,
exist in a bubble.
and I promise you, the title company's gonna tell you that they're waiting on us, even though they probably have not necessarily gotten all of the data to us every time. So we do work on that. We try to tell them, you know, give us a solid 2 weeks in advance so that we can get that.
I got a question. On the map that you have, tax sales and resales, I want to make sure I understand this. So you're saying that Tatum ISD, it was, y'all collected for us almost 1.8 million?
In tax sales.
Over the 2018 through June 2023 time period.
But if our delinquent taxes, wouldn't our delinquent taxes have to be higher than that?
No, it's over 5 years, so that's the total amount that came in from all those sales over that 5-year period.
And the taxes are not just from those 5 years. The taxes are from all of the years that were included in the lawsuit. I don't know if that's-
Well, I mean, if our delinquent taxes are around, let's say 800,000, I'm just trying to figure out. And it shows that we almost got 1.8.
That's over a course of 5 years. So I'd say take 1.7 and divide it by 5, and that would be about the average per year what we get through tax sales.
Okay. But would our delinquent taxes be over
Yes, it would be.
5 years too?
On your J1s, on your TEA J1s, your delinquent roll starts out around 800,000-900,000 and ends up around 600,000 to 500,000 almost every year.
Okay. And you mentioned something earlier about deferrals,
Yes,
and 40% was in deferrals.
at the end of June.
at the end of June.
$50.
40%
Of your delinquent roll, the end of June, we're in deferral.
not of accounts,
Of dollars.
No,
dollars.
Dollars.
the dollar amount.
Mhm.
40% of the dollar amount, I think is what he's saying.
And that's not unusual. I mean, when we look at lots of rolls, you'll see at the end of the year, that's at the end of the year, it's the end of our cycle, our one-year cycle, it gets down in that 30 to 40% range for a lot of districts. You're a little heavier on homesteads and a little lighter on commercial and industrial, but you do have a lot of members. So it's
Do
not,
And I guess deferrals don't get letters, do
they cannot get a letter, no. Not unless we do this homestead audit. And in the homestead audit, then we go out there and look for people who are deceased, and people who are married, and then they will get a letter.
We do check the deferrals twice a year to see if someone has passed away, if they've moved. Of course, we don't do the full audit the way that department did, but we check our individual accounts on the roll to make sure, because after the deferral is removed, they have 180 days to pay without additional penalty or interest being added. So after the deferral is removed, it's designed to allow the family to settle the estate and pay that without the additional percent, because they are accruing penalty and interest throughout the deferral, but it is a much reduced amount than if they were just not paying without the deferral. And the appraisal district is the party that determines if they qualify for the deferral or not.
But only 9%, or actually less than
of the
9%
accounts.
of the accounts are in deferral.
But
Yes,
that's in August, so remember, you have an entire rollover that occurs on July 1st. So that $600,000 pot becomes a $900,000 pot, and all that new money gets put into it.
And the dollars on the deferral can add up because it is many years, because it continues to add. As we said, people are much healthier and living much longer. And so the older I get, the under 65 seems, of course, too. So it's not a very significant age to have that. And so the dollar amount will increase. On many rolls, the top 5 accounts are deferrals, many of them, especially in East Texas that I've
Right.
seen.
And I'd take you back to that chart that had your delinquent accounts. And remember, if you look at that one, if you look at that one, a lot of those accounts are in deferral. So if you notice up there,
It's had enough of you.
it's not. If you notice, account number 5 and 6 is deferral, and you look down through there, we have several other deferrals. I think there's another one, 19, or maybe
There is,
some
and
more.
it's a Cherokee.
Let your property.
So basically our top, I wouldn't say majority, but there are quite a few deferrals in our top, I guess, most wanted list, as you said.
Which is how the dollar amount gets closer to that 40% because they're large.
And so we can't collect on those deferrals.
It's just a hold. It's a temporary hold, but it can
Until
last a long time.
somebody passes away or.
So does undivided interest cause that to be a deferral?
No, it's your homestead. So usually homesteads are owned mostly by a person or a couple. Occasionally, you can have undivided interest and get a homestead nowadays.
So just to give you guys a little bit different voice to hear, Dr. Richardson, we visited in the past, and I'm kind of a spreadsheet nerd, right? So you had asked a question about the tax sales. I just wanted to explain a little bit better how that number comes about. The 1.7 million in total tax sales over that 5-year period, that includes a couple of things. One, it includes excess proceeds. So this is in the event we sell property for more than what the taxes are due. There's a time period where the original taxpayer and there's a priority list, but others can come and ask for those excess proceeds, the surplus. But after a couple of years, if no one comes, then the entities get that. So those tax sale dollars are going to include that. Something else is, Dr. Richardson, you mentioned the 800,000 in the delinquent tax receivables category, and that's on those J1.
Right.
So remember, that's a running total. Every year, you're going to get a new rollover, and your rollover ranges anywhere from 700,000 to 900,000 every year. So those are new dollars that are added to that 800,000 And throughout the course of the collection year, those dollars are collected. So 1.7 million over a 5-year period includes the sales that are the result of those delinquencies that come about at 800,000 a year and then are sold. So that the number, when you break it down by year and consider the gravity of the rollover of delinquent accounts every year, it makes a little more sense that way. So the 800,000 isn't every year. It's a running total balance.
Yeah, well,
So that's how you.
it just seems like when I read it, it's like, that is what y'all collected for us. Basically, we should have received in delinquent taxes. And I'm like, oh, we haven't received that. So that's why I asked that question. Because it looks like to me, we got 127 tracks sold and we should have a check for 1.7 whatever.
Over the course of that time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Many sales and many.
Yes.
Perpetually rolling.
Okay. Gotcha. And have y'all given the checks back? I mean, how do y'all go about that? Because do y'all hand deliver the checks back to the schools after the 2 years?
When there are excess proceeds, a lot of them are claimed, but yes, we hand deliver them.
Okay.
Some boards prefer at a meeting, some prefer a business manager. We can make it work however is best for each school at the time, but sometimes even if there were excess proceeds in that 1.7, it doesn't mean that the school gets it, because it's not just the property owners or the defendants, the lien holders come in. If they had, like a bank or someone that had an abstract of judgment or a mechanics or materialman lien for when they built the house. There are all kinds of things that come in and take that funds during the 2 years. So
How often does that happen with y'all's firm?
the excess proceeds, do we distribute them, or how often do we?
I mean, I don't, not aware of y'all giving us any extra that we had any. I don't know if we've had any in the past.
I don't particularly remember any for Tatum over the last several
I don't
years.
remember, but we normally would give it to the business manager.
Are you holding that money?
We call it pennies from heaven because of course, you know, it can go to
Right.
your general fund. So whatever the needs are, you can use it. It's less restricted.
I was just curious if Tatum ISD's ever received any. in the
We can
past.
run a report, and see, again, Kim, as we talked about, our litigation manager can run any report that you can imagine. She can get it for us and she can tell us all sorts of data on it.
So,
Okay, a couple weeks ago when we met, or last week, whenever it was, I can't remember which one of you said it, but it was, you said that after 20 years, that the delinquent taxes just fall off. So
Statute of limitations.
Is there no more follow-up or anything than after the 20 years?
If it's under a suit, deferred, or in bankruptcy, the statute is told. So anything that's under suit has had a bankruptcy on it, or the tendency to bankruptcy, or is in a deferral, then that statute gets pushed back.
Okay.
And so the process is, the law requires the tax collector to remove it from the roll if it has not gotten or doesn't meet any of those criteria. Judgments would be put in that criteria also.
And at what point in your process would the delinquent property actually be sold? I mean, what has to be done? You know, judgments filed?
We must have a judgment in which all the parties have been served through due process. The court's got to sign that judgment. And then in our judgment, we have an order of sale, and then we request the district clerk to issue that. And then we set it for our next scheduled sale. So we have, how many sales a year, Cindy? 3.
We also have to post it. So the sales are
Right.
posted in the newspaper. They have to be
Right.
published. Again, it's a due process right for property owners to see. And it also is an equal opportunity for people to know about the sale, to come and bid on it and to make the purchase. And so it has to be in the newspaper so many times before. So usually it's at least 60 days after the date of a judgment before it is sold. But a judgment doesn't necessarily mean a sale either. There are some people that, and we do this quite frequently in district court, we will take a judgment even if they are making payments, but we will announce on the record that as long as they are current, with their payment agreement, we will not sell the property. But if they miss it, we're gonna go ahead and set it for sale and won't pull it unless it is paid in full at that point in time.
What's the average time though?
From judgment to sale, or from filing a lawsuit to sale?
I say filing a lawsuit to sell.
Oh, gosh,
I'll say this, after years and years where there's no one answer, but I'd
Right.
say 2 years, if it is a fairly simple lawsuit, in maybe Russ County. And that would be like a regular homeowner, maybe one lien holder, or two homeowners, or two landowners. If it's the really worst scenario is a
Yeah.
reject.
Or having an estate.
Right. And then when
Several
we
heirs.
discover new heirs, and every time we get one cert, we discover new heirs, those have a lot.
so mom and dad may have had property and beautiful family property in East Texas, and they had 4 children. Mom and dad died. One of the 4 children probably still lives there. It was a very common story that we'll see. That child will willingly take care of the upkeep and the taxes on that property because they're getting the benefit of it. The other 3 children may live in New York, California, and Florida, and they don't worry about it because they're not having to pay for it, and they're still kind of a close family who all grew up together. But when those 4 pass away, each of them might have had 4 children. And none of the children still live in the house. And so there are at least 16 if none of those 16 passed away and had surviving spouses or children. And several of those 16 may have the means or the desire to pay the taxes, but they don't want to because it won't give them ownership. So they don't want to pay, if they have a 1/16 ownership in it, they don't want to pay 16 of 16 shares of the taxes.
There are 6 that can take 60 days, but that's highly unusual. I want to leave you with this. I want to take you back to your TEA collection report. In the end, it's the school board. That's the school board. We may not have won every play. We may not have won every first down, but when we got past the 20-yard line, we were in the red zone, we scored. So I just want to thank you very much for your time. I want to thank you for your consideration. And it has been a pleasure working with you. We hope to continue to earn your business. Thank you all.
We'll take about a 5-minute recess.
I just needed to stand. I just sat there one minute, but I was like,
I got the thing.
5-minute recess.
Jim,
Yes, sir.
I got your thing. I got to figure out. I forgot the password. This long?
Ms. Lund doesn't want to be responsible for technology. She wants web, I think she said.
You can leave it running, Miss Lund.
Thank you.
You gotta have to come do your stuff again. I need to eject his, thing with the
Good, how are you?
Good.
Careful, we're out of Carmen's teaching class, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Honors,
I'm not quite back to Rachel level.
Good, on the project? Yeah. It's me personally, I'm more of a, so I'm trying to learn. All right, you're in there, right? So this thing is, you don't have your glasses? Travel?
Yeah.
Right here, right there. All right, standards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's run.
Leave it.
Yeah, just leave, just, she doesn't know how to.
I'm not sure which
I was just thinking about like water, so all game. You know, you ain't lying. Yes.
It was a weird thing. I'm so glad I did it too.
No.
But yeah, this is, I'm sure this is show. Just little wedge type.
Yeah, you have.
She didn't remember where she got them, where she said she.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
We're good.
No,
Until it's all over, we're good.
I can't even think of it. Mom, will do
No, she doesn't know.
No.
She's been sick. And so we're keeping all of her. My dad.
Oh, I was trying to all fire. I don't care if it's something Oh, my goodness, baby. I was just gonna do it and then they were doing it. Well, this is.
We're all gonna get spanked. Everybody got roll. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm like, I'll try this morning. I mean, I don't like the same thing.
I'm just out there. And we didn't hear that in 2000. Oh, you just have your own place to pay your taxes.
And now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're gonna go try to pay your other, you still. Ms. Gill, do you want to try your clicker, or who has your clicker? Make sure I did it right. All right, you're up.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Gold, and it's good to see all of you again. I'm with McCurry, Veselka, Bragg, and Allen. I'm sure I'll see you at McCurry, so we can go for short with MPBA. I'd like to introduce Liz Vaughn. She works with me out of the Longview office, and Keith Treadway, he is our East Texas office. So when Liz and I are unavailable, Keith steps in to take our seat. And there's our pictures. And unfortunately, Connor couldn't make it today. He had a class to teach. So he is regretful that he couldn't attend. So I'm going to go over, well, Connor went over last time the immediate revenue increases, and I'm skipping that just so I'll have all that data. And I am going to comment on the rest of these areas. Try not to go over what I have already previously gone over, but to highlight certain points in certain areas. So first of all, proactive collections process. The process is the same for all of us. Client communication, mass mailings, pre-suit analysis, tax warrants, suits, judgment, sell, resell. We all have the same process, but there are some differences. We too have an IT department and proprietary software. It does the same things as all others, analyzes the tax roll, generates documents, allows us to analyze the data in a multitude of ways. Not only that, our IT department has created an online tax sale platform. So we can conduct our own tax sales through our platform, which saves your taxpayers money because we don't charge as much per tract as real auction, which is what your current firm has proposed and used in several counties. Unmatched support staff. We have quick, thorough taxpayer communication, real-time answers for your taxpayers. Part of that is because we do our title in-house. So if an ad item calls or a taxpayer calls, wants to know why somebody's in a suit, or why some acreage wasn't matching up, or feels like some other people are in that suit, our staff is able to answer those questions immediately. There's no phone call to a title company or outsource in time to wait on answers for those questions. We can answer them in real time. With that said, the in-house staff is experienced in roll analysis, title examination, and skip tracing. And I believe Stacy was talking about looking at, as a puzzle. Yes, we look at it as a puzzle. And if you run your own title, you can look at the abstracts and look at the roll and better combine those to make going after the more difficult title more efficient. So skilled title work equals more collections. We also have a mineral department, as I just discussed prior. And I believe somebody from your current firm mentioned that is a problem area because of unknown owners. As I previously stated, Jack Dameron, who's the head of our mineral department and longtime business in oil and gas, has contacts and can make a phone call and generally find out who the current payee is and do a tax warrant, divert that money, and it gets paid off, and it's little to no interruption to the taxpayer. So more effort in collections. We do all the same things, like I said before, make phone calls, all the mailings, and those across the board are the same. However, we take on the hard airship accounts. Now, I just had a difficult airship account in Henderson County, 298 defendants on a 50-acre tract. From filing to taking judgment, it took 2 years. In August, I took judgment. In December, it will be sold, as an example. With that said, yes, we file more suits. We file more suits because it sets a precedence. People know we're serious. When all the other collection efforts fail. And then over time, knowing that we file suits, take judgment, and take it to sell, people are more willing to pay sooner because they know we mean business. We're not going to let a suit sit out there for 10 years, 6 years. We're continuously rolling them over to get from filing to judgment to sell as quickly as possible. Speaking of sales, and it was mentioned the 1.7 million in collections. As it was clarified, a portion of that was excess proceeds. That's not guaranteed. That's not collections in your pocket. Also, I am assuming here, but that amount was a total amount that was obtained at the sales. So that includes court costs, publication fees, title research fees, and other fees that get tacked on. So that also takes away from the amount actually collected. When I was analyzing this and trying to figure out where $1.7 million came from, I noticed that a lot of the properties were resales. If you divide out the 127 properties by the 1.7 million, that's an average of $14,000 a tract in value alone. With resale properties, I can guarantee you that the minimum bid was not $14,000 because it didn't sell the first time. I could not figure out for the life of me how we got to $1.7 million. The only way that I could is when I added up the adjudged value of each tract prior to the resales, the adjudged value. So the market value, not, but then it was a resale, you come back in, you lower the price, and you try to sell it to get back on the tax roll. But the adjudged value equaled 1.7 million. So it wasn't a direct collection into your pocket. Tax warrants on business or personal property. Current firm spoke of Legend. We also collected on Legend in Cherokee and Reeves County. We did a computer care center for Pine Tree ISD. I also collected for Bell County and Brazos County. In fact, I just delivered a check to Keith for the Brazos County portion that I obtained out of excess proceeds from our sale. So we're constantly looking how to gather as much money as possible for all of our clients. And in addition, we just did a tax warrant against Mountain Coil for Pine Tree and Midland. In this tax warrant, we caught word that they were coming immediately and going to remove some property. We were able to hold it with Midland delinquent taxes until we got our petition filed. Our petition stayed filed for about a week and a half. I know your current firm knew of the tax warrant, did not file or intervene into our tax warrant, property left. So that left $50,000 on the table for Gray County. More service at no cost. Property value studies, taxable value audits, we provide both at no cost. Your current firm said that going forward, they wouldn't charge you. However, I am curious as to how much was taken out of school dollars to pay for some of these services over the 28 years or however long they have been conducting these on your behalf. In addition, when talking about snapshots and in collections overall, majority of the examples that were provided to you were at least 10 years old. At least. The Longview ISD, 2009. And like, they only provided you for the transfer year. So half of that year we worked the account and half of the year they worked the account. There was no additional years provided to you. When I came here previously, I provided you with the Cherokee County charts for each individual school district that spanned between 2014 and 2022. I talked about the mineral department. We also have a bankruptcy department that is a service that we provide at no cost to you. And in addition to that, we have award-winning education team. Recently, Connor just won an award for best teacher. We also have Connie Rose, who is the expert for truth in taxation and tax rate adoption. These are all at your disposal at any time to ask questions, walk you through things, help you understand nuances and practical application of the law. Most importantly, I want to address the Rusk County Tax Assessor Collector's statement that she would need 2.5 full-time employees at a cost of $135,000 just to service Tatum ISD. I spoke with Peggy Goodall out of Henderson County, who also is a tax assessor and collects for 2 law firms. She said that she's more than happy to answer any of your questions, so I can give you your phone number after the fact. But I asked her how she handles having 2 law firms and what the impact is for that burden, so to speak. She says that she charges 90 cents per parcel, the actual cost, because that's what the tax code says, actual cost. 90 cents per parcel, and that's it. I said, did you need additional staff because of the confusion caused or supposedly caused by having 2 law firms in the same county? She said, absolutely not. They're going to call anyways. They call anyways, and she said there's no real tangible burden or extra work. They're going to call anyways. As easy as giving a phone number. All right, and now I am going to turn it over to Liz. She is going to present to you the specifics of your tax roll.
Good evening. I realized last time that I forgot to introduce myself. So I'm Liz. Some of you may remember me from a long time ago whenever I used to work Tatum ISD when I was a Linebarger employee. I left Linebarger in 2008 and went to McCreary to Selkirk, Bryan, and Allen, and I've been there ever since. So I am a facts and number driven individual. After we were here at the last meeting, I filed several public information requests. One of the public information requests that I filed was for a copy of the handout that was provided to you all from the Linebarger firm, because I wanted to go back and verify all of the numbers, because that's how I'm wired. One thing I want to talk about before we talk about total collection percentages is the representation that's been made to you all tonight about White Oak ISD and whether or not we have filed any taxable value audits. I'm not sure where Mr. Lambeth received his information. I have the filed paperwork for each of the years that we have filed a taxable value audit for White Oak ISD, from the time that we started filing them in 2017 up through the most recent one that we did, and the recovery is approximately $86,000. There is one that is still pending right now, and that's why I say approximately. So the public information requests that I filed included the Linebarger handout. I sent a public information request to the Rusk County Appraisal District and also to the Panola County Appraisal District, asking them about your deferral status in properties that have tax deferrals. I also had an employee go and physically sit down in the district clerk's office and search her system to look at suits that had been filed. When I was here last time, I told you that there were 29 suits that had been filed from January 1 of 2018 through June. I was incorrect. That information came to me from a source called iDocket, which is the online judicial records search for Rusk County. When I sent my employee to physically search the district clerk's office computer in Rusk County, there were 42 suits filed, which matches exactly what the Linebarger firm said that they filed. There were 3 suits that have been filed in August in Panola County, and we also searched Panola County as well. So I did verify that 42 suits, and I apologize for my misrepresentation. I can tell you that it was not intentional. It was based on searches that were done in iDocket. And once I physically had someone go and sit down and look at each one of the petitions and verify it, and I just wanted to clear that up. So we're going to talk a little bit about math. I'm not going to make you do any calculations. I've done the calculations for you on the next slide. But I want to talk to you about how we calculate your total collection percentage. You start with your original levy for current tax year. You add your adjustments to the current year's tax levy, and that gives you your adjusted original levy. So the reason that we always adjust it, and we adjust it by the current year's adjustments, is because that's actually dollars that are potentially going to come into your district for that year. The next step in the calculation is to add all of the M&O and INS tax years, and that gives you your total collections. Then you take your total collections, divide it by your adjusted levy, and that gives you your total collection percentage. We believe that calculating it this way and not taking into account adjustments that are made to prior years is a more accurate and true representation of dollars that are going to be or have been received by the district. And that's why we calculate it this way. I heard at the last meeting that Tatum ISD has 123% collection average. This is my 24th year in the business. I graduated from law school and went straight to work in this field, and never in my 24 years have I seen a district that has 123% collection average. So if you go to the next page, and Stacey, if you'll switch the slide for me. And I'm sorry, our charts didn't come out very well on your handout, so you may want to look at the actual slide. I have taken all of this data from your Exhibit J1 that is available through the TEA website. I've done the calculations there in Excel to make sure that I didn't make a mistake in the calculations. And you can see that using the method that I just outlined to you before, your 5-year collection average is 99.86%. I thought, okay, well, I must be doing something wrong. So I put it into a spreadsheet every way that I could possibly think of. I added adjustments, I subtracted adjustments, I added total adjustments, subtracted total adjustments, and I can't get you to 127%. I thought, okay, I'm going to add penalty and interest. I emailed Brandon and ask him for the penalty and interest in each of the last 5 years so that I can include that information in my calculations. When I add your penalty and interest, that brings you to 101.96% as your 5-year collection average. You'll go to the next line. One thing that I want you to think about, though, is that your total collection percentage, the primary driver behind that is going to be your current tax collections. In Tatum ISD, between 97 and 98% of your taxpayers generally pay on time. When you have 97 or 98% of your taxpayers that pay on time, it's not that hard to get to 98 or 99 or 100%. We believe that a better measure for your delinquent tax collection efforts is to look at the percent of your delinquent tax roll collected within the fiscal year. Up here on the screen and on the slide, it walks you through the process in case you want to go back and look at your J1 sometime when you're bored and figure this out. All of this information comes from your Exhibit J1 on your audit reports. And again, we believe that this is a better measure of delinquent tax collection efforts because this is something that we actually, as delinquent tax attorneys, have control over. This represents our work, the majority of our work. So what you'll see on the screen now is a 10-year history of Tatum ISD percentage of your delinquent tax roll collected during your fiscal year. You can see that it ranges between 2.87% and 26.92%. Now, obviously, we all know that there was an issue with Luminant in 2017 and 2018, and actually prior to 2017, but that is when it materialized on your Schedule J1. So for fiscal year end 2022, which is the most recent audit that is available, your percent of delinquent tax roll collected was 11.52%. You'll move to the next slide. This slide shows you a 5-year average of MVBA Northeast Texas school districts versus Tatum ISD and the percent of delinquent tax roll collected. In this slide, the school districts are arranged from the school district with the largest outstanding delinquent tax roll down to the school district with the smallest delinquent tax roll. You'll see that the 5-year average for Tatum ISD is below all but one school district. That one school district has an outstanding delinquent tax roll of $15,000. Because no two school districts are alike. They're not alike in their students, they're not alike in their taxpayers, they're not alike in their socioeconomic situation. I tried to give you a different perspective. So what I did was took the average, the 5-year average of all of those districts that were on the prior chart and compared them to Tatum ISD. So the Tatum ISD 5-year average of delinquent tax roll collection percentage was 18.68. And MVBA Northeast Texas ISD's 32.24% is the average percent of your delinquent tax roll that's collected. So what does your outstanding delinquent tax roll look like? I got a file that included all of your delinquent taxpayers as of August the 31st, and I put that into our system, and I ran a bunch of analysis on it. So as of August the 31st, there were 11,687 delinquent accounts. The balance was $838,395. And of those 11,687 accounts, there were 2,008 owners. Your real property delinquent accounts make up the majority of your delinquent tax roll, $584,858. 543 accounts with 431 property owners. Minerals are obviously an issue. You've got 10,977 accounts, 1,445 owners, and the total outstanding balance for minerals is $198,695. Personal property, there's $54,842 outstanding, 167 accounts with 158 owners. If you go through and add up all those owners, it's gonna equal more than 2008. That's because 25 owners have more than one property type. Yes,
On that mineral roll, the 10,977 accounts, is that including the royalty owners or is that just the operators?
that's gonna be royalty owners, primarily royalty owners. I did not go in and look at each one of the mineral accounts. Your largest delinquent mineral accounts, I did, and those were all royalty interest owners.
So these are, if I own a 1/5 overriding royalty interest in a well, I didn't pay my tax.
That's correct.
That would be, I would be on that roll.
You would be
I
on
would
that
be
roll.
one of those 10,000.
And the way that we.
Is your operator in there?
If they're delinquent, they could have a delinquent working interest account, and we have had some of those happen before. But I didn't see any in your larger mineral roll that were operators. It was primarily royalty interest owners.
So, well, you probably don't have this information, but your working interest owners, or do they make up a very big percentage?
I did not look at that. I can look at it and come back to you with that information, but I did not look at that. My mineral department, the head of my mineral department came back from vacation on Sunday and came into the office on Monday so that he could look through some of your minerals, so that he could give me some general information about what was on your roll. And he handed me, after about 2.5 hours, 10 accounts that he was ready to file suit on right then, that he had title resolved, that were some of your larger delinquent mineral interest owners. So, and before we talk about this slide, I will tell you that one of the tools that we use on a regular basis to collect delinquent royalty interests is a royalty interest tax warrant. It's a mineral tax warrant. So what that does is it's a court order from the judge to the operator that tells them you're going to turn over all future royalty interest payments to Tatum ISD until their debt is paid in full. Then that warrant is going to be dissolved, and then the royalty payments go right back to the property owner, so they still own their royalty interest. We've just helped them involuntarily prioritize what gets paid out of those royalty payments, but they still retain ownership. And where appropriate, we use those on a regular basis.
So let me ask, like, so if you have royalties or your own minerals, when they send you at the end of the year, you get like a separate tax statement for those royalties that you collected on that property?
If it's a producing royalty interest, you will be assessed separately for that interest, and you will get a tax statement for every interest that there is.
Or like somebody leased it for so long, a certain period of time.
I'm sorry?
What if you get like a little lease? Say you lease say a company comes in, oil or gas company wants to lease, you have mineral rights, they want to lease it, or pay you for a lease. How does that work?
Until it's actually a producing interest, there's not a tax associated with it. It's a surface account until there is actually a producing royalty interest, at which point they get their own separate account.
I do want to add, so there generally is another company that will assess the minerals themselves, and how they get the royalty interest owners on the tax roll is through their pay deck or division orders.
And as Stacy indicated earlier, Mr. Dameron, who started out as an oil and gas landman, he actually told me this story. I don't know if he was trying to impress me or what, but he said, well, Liz, the reason that I came to East Texas and Longview was because I was putting together a lot of units that are in Tatum ISD. So I know these units because I put them together. I thought, okay, well, I'm going to find a way to use that somewhere. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, I put your delinquent tax file into our proprietary software, and this is what your delinquent tax roll looks like based on the codes that were sent to me on the file as of August the 31st of 2023. These represent actual dollar amounts, not account numbers. You'll see that the slice of pie that is red has deferral codes. Before I came out here to talk to you about that, I went back to those appraisal district public information requests, and I verified that the information I received from both of the appraisal districts matched the codes that were on your tax roll. There are currently no tax deferrals in Panola County pursuant to my information received as a result of that request. In Rusk County for 2024, there are 22. For 2023, there were 24. There's 6.81% of your delinquent tax dollars are covered by tax deferral, not 40. 0.14% has a payment agreement code on it. 0.67% has a bankruptcy code on it. It was basically 2 accounts. So we went back and looked at that bankruptcy. That bankruptcy was dismissed a number of years ago and is no longer applicable to the account that has that bankruptcy code on it. So really, based on the file that I received August the 31st, assuming that there are no other bankruptcies that are not coded on the file, that should actually be 0%. There is 12.12% of your roll that is coded with a mail return. 27.55% of your dollars have a suit code on them. And 52.71% of your tax roll has no code. Doesn't have a suit code, doesn't have a deferral code, doesn't have a mail return code.
I want to clarify, because I asked that question to another firm. So the 6.81%, it kind of, how was it explained to me? Because they had 9.4%, but said it was 40%, but it was really.
They said it was accounts that had deferrals on it, was their 9 point, whatever that percentage was that was covered by deferral. They said it was 40% of your delinquent tax dollars. And what I'm telling you is that based on the file that I received August the 31st, 6.81% of the dollars have a deferral code on it. I've got a list, and I can pass this around. I'm sorry, I didn't make copies of it. This was based on the first public information request that I filed back in January from the Rusk County Appraisal District. And you'll see that some of them have a slash there. That means they don't have any delinquent taxes, but they have a deferral. And these amounts are not necessarily going to be correct because this right here was done in January. So I'll pass that around and you guys can look at that.
And no code's a good thing?
No codes is typically what we're gonna say is work in process, and what they say is actively being worked. Phone calls are being made on those, mailings are being done on those, address research may be being done on those, if for some reason we've got a return mail that the tax office doesn't have. And it could be accounts that are like those that are under $250, right? You want us to bring in the most money that we can as fast as we possibly can, and so you want us to start at the top and work our way down to the bottom. So it's not a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing either. Interestingly enough, of those 27.55% of accounts that are coded with a suit code, the average number of years that are delinquent on those accounts is 10.23 years. Now, I've heard mention of the burden that it is on your taxpayers to file a suit for the costs that are associated with the suit, but I can tell you that on a reasonable dollar amount, let's say $2,500, if I let that account go delinquent for 10 years, your delinquent taxpayer is paying more in penalty and interest than they are in base tax. They're paying more in penalty and interest than they would be paying in court costs. The next slide, this is your Tatum ISD top 20 delinquent taxpayers as of August the 31st. I put 2 numbers up there so that you can have a better idea, and I also added a little bit more information on there. The middle column is base tax due, and then the column just to the right of that is total due. So for example, your number 1 delinquent taxpayer, the Arsino Bell Estate, it's delinquent for tax year 1990. Then tax year 1995 through 2022. The base tax amount due on that account is $16,589.15. The total due to pay it in full, including penalty, interest, and attorney's fees, is $45,027.96. There are 5 real estate accounts that are owned by that individual. 4 of those 5 are undivided interests. It just so happens that they're undivided interests that are also part of the issue with Archie Bell, number 2, and Terry Bell, number 4. They all own undivided interests in property that is the same, and you can see that Archie and Arsino have long-standing delinquencies. Terry's is not as delinquent, but he also has delinquencies. And you'll see there's information there in red that shows you the cause number that those three taxpayers are all in. It's cause number 2012-203. So when you're looking at cause numbers, the way that both the Panola County District Clerk and the Rusk County District Clerk assign cause numbers is the first 4 numbers are the year that the case was filed. And then the last 3 numbers, or could be 4 numbers, or could be, 2 numbers, is the number that case was filed that year. So the Archie Bell, Arsino Bell, and Terry Bell are all part of a suit that was filed in 2012. The last activity, according to a search of the district clerk's office last week, was February the 17th of 2012. And when I say last activity, I mean that's the last document that was filed with the district clerk. What they've done since then, I can't tell you. This is just based on
2022.
I'm sorry, 22, yes. February the 17th of 2022. That's the last activity that's filed in the clerk's office. Your number 3 taxpayer is a tax deferral. Let's move down to Willie Davis, your number 5. He has 2, he or she, I should assume, has 2 real estate accounts. One of them is deferred, the other is not. That one that is not deferred probably is much less due than the deferral amount, and so I understand why there is no SIP code on that. Hazel Cox is number 6. She's delinquent from 2008 to 2022. A suit was filed August the 18th of 2023. You've got cause number 2023-219, if my old lady eyes are reading that correctly. Your number 7 delinquent taxpayer, 2019 through 2022. There is cause number 2019-109. A judgment was granted in January. And we found another suit that also had Willie Stoker, but I don't know. I did not review the suits personally, so I can't tell you whether or not those were on the same property, but there are 2 suits pending or were pending against Willie Stoker. You can go on down, number 8. They're delinquent 2016 through 2022. The suit was filed August 18th of 2023. Here's an interesting one that I would like to point out to you. Number 9, Willie Margaret Arthur Sparks. These are all royalty interest accounts. They are only on the tax roll 2000 through 2012. That's because Willie passed away. And at some point they've been split out to her heirs, but there's no longer an interest that is owned by Willie Margaret Sparks. Had MDBA been working your delinquent tax roll, a tax warrant would have been done some time ago to collect those. The suit on that account was filed in 2019. Number 10, Joe Montgomery is delinquent 2005 through 2022. The suit was filed in 2019, and the last recorded activity in the district clerk's office is July of 2021. I'm not going to go through all the rest of those. You can read them there on the screen. You can't read them on the handout that I gave you, and I do apologize for that. But you'll see, of your top 20, there are suits on most everybody. It looks like number 16, Viola Blakely, is delinquent 2003 to 2022. There's been return mail on that account since 10 of 99, and there was no code for a suit or anything like that on the file. And then also your number 11, Aaron Benjamin Estate, delinquent 2010 through 2022. There was no activity documented on the tax roll with regard to that account either. Does anybody have any questions about the stuff that I've talked about so far? I do want to rebut a few things that were said about NVDA and our collections for both Longview ISD, Van Zandt County Appraisal District, as well as LaPointe Independent School District. I don't think that you all were given a full picture, and thank goodness Longview ISD, Van Zandt County, 19 years ago and 14 years ago that they took those accounts. There are a lot of things that have changed in 19 years and 15 years. One of those is our proprietary software that has evolved 3 times since then. Another thing that has changed since that time is the staff that's working the accounts. I came to NVBA in 2008, in June of 2008. Stacy came in 2019. While some of our staff members have been with the firm for more than 35 years, we have also grown since I've been here, and we have new staff as well. And we have a different outlook than my predecessor in my chair. Also, Van Zandt County Appraisal District, I was an employee of the Linebarger Law Firm when we took Van Zandt County Appraisal District from McCrary. I pitched right next to Jim Lambeth, and Jim and I secured that contract. I find it hard to believe that he would use that when I was instrumental in taking that account 14 years ago, 15 years ago. LaPointe ISD, the last year that we were involved in their collections, we collected 46% of their tax roll with 4 judgments that had been pending for several years. Their collection number looks great that year. If you look at the percentage of delinquent taxes collected in the 2 years following that they are solely responsible for, it went from 46% down to 23%. And what did I tell you today, Stacy? It was 11? It was around 11. The feedback that I have received from the Cherokee County Appraisal District and the Cherokee County School Districts that we took over from the Linebarger Law Firm in 2017 has been nothing but positive. I gave a report to that board of directors 2 weeks ago, and all they did was sing my praises and talk about what a wonderful decision it was that they decided to change. I'd be more than happy to connect you with the people that have made those comments, the chief appraiser, or the school board members who sit on the appraisal district board of directors that have been involved in the entire process, if you would like that information. Now, I think Keith is going to summarize and come behind me with some additional points, if nobody has any questions for me.
Okay, so I'm Keith Treadway. I won't take much of your time, but I do want to thank all of you for giving us your time. The reality is we do appreciate it. So both firms, I will simply say, in terms of the whole process, they spent a lot of time on the process. We spent a lot of time on the numbers, et cetera. The reality is both firms are full service law firms. There's no doubt that both firms can do what you need us to do. The question is, and it's actually interesting, that they specifically used relentless collections in their presentation. But they also included the lawsuit where you could see it's basically 3 of your top 4 counts where it's a 10-year lawsuit with 33 defendants. That's not relentless. The reality is that but I will say this, the last activity was February of 2022. That basically has given another, let's see here, 15, 16 months for somebody to die, for them to have to amend again, because that's how lawsuits like that keep going. When you have that many errors, if you don't move it forward, if you don't actually push it forward, they do extend forever, because the more numbers there are in there, the more opportunity there is for somebody to die. And it's just the way it is. And so the reality is that You know, they filed 42 lawsuits in the past 5 years. It's an average of 8.4. They've sent 10 people here tonight from across the state. They sent more than that last time. The reality is, and this is really what it boils down to, if they had sent 10 people on a random day to work your account each year, you probably have more than 8.4 suits per year. It's really that simple. And so, while I appreciate y'all giving us the chance, I understand that it's a hard decision, but I do appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Questions? Follow up, President?
I had a question for Stacy. When you said that the Cherokee County Clerk, that, she was charging 90 cents per parcel, who does she charge for that? Is the taxpayer charge that?
So that was in Henderson County, and, this is what she charges for school districts. When they do an interlocal, a separate interlocal where they get to choose their, own attorney, which happens to be Linebarger. They have some school districts in Henderson County. We represent the county in a couple of school districts. How she charges for those collections is 90 cents per parcel, actual cost.
And that's only because she is working with two separate law firms.
Correct, and she's allowed to charge when there is an interlocal in place or when they force collections on her.
That's what she charges all of her entities per parcel. So it's not because there are two collection firms in her office. That is her charge per parcel. Some offices do it per parcel. Some give a fixed dollar amount. It just depends on what the preference is. For example, La Pointe Independent School District, they are a split district, Anderson County and Henderson County. They were under an interlocal agreement similar to the one that you all are currently under. The Linebarger Law Firm convinced them to switch. They went through the same exact process that you all are considering going through. At that point in time, the tax collector in Henderson County, once they took their action, she sent them a revised interlocal agreement and said, I would rather be in an interlocal agreement with you all. If you prefer to sign an interlocal agreement that allows you to retain the right to select a delinquent tax attorney, I'll do that. She sent them a new interlocal agreement. She still charges them the same amount today that she did whenever she did it under the other interlocal agreement. And she collects the parcels that are both in Henderson County and in Anderson County. Sorry, I didn't mean
it. She knows the history of Henderson County because we worked there over 30 years, so.
Thank you.
I asked a question of Lamar, I asked you all the same question. As far as returning money proceeds after the 2 years back to y'all's schools.
So recently in Henderson County, well, actually yesterday I delivered approximate 3 checks totaling $30,000 to Athens ISD. 3 weeks ago, I delivered $77,000 to the county, and in March I delivered $56,000 to the county. So that is a push in cleaning up beyond 2 years, but I'm going through the entirety because I'm working with the district clerk to get it all cleaned up, so that she can close out her cases. So, I've been doing that big push, but it sits for 2 years. And then also too, with the excess proceeds, I go in and object. I make the person who is petitioning for it prove their interest and their entitlement. So I don't ignore them, because it's protecting the county and our entities' potential interest after 2 years. So, and that goes into the general fund. I mean, I love delivering those checks, to be honest. But yes.
Thank you.
So you all collect Pine Tree District, is that correct?
Yes, we
And
collect.
they pay the school taxes, and I asked Jeff, and he said Glenbrook did the same thing.
Yes, they both have their own tax offices.
Is that something that's created because Grant County they want it separated like that, or can it be, I mean, will we run into that issue, or does Russ County have to?
So once you pass the 6.22 resolution, assuming that you decide to make that happen, once you pass that resolution, she has to collect your taxes. Now, she only has to collect your Rusk County taxes. So if she decides that she doesn't want to collect your Panola County taxes, then you would have to pass that same resolution for the Panola County tax assessor collector. But the tax code, and I can put that section up on the screen if you want me to, but basically that tax code section says where a county collects for themselves, a taxing entity can require them to do their collections. Now, you all used to have your own tax assessor collector, and she retired in 2007, if I remember correctly. And so at that point, that's when you moved your collections to the Rusk County Tax Office, and that interlocal agreement was signed. Before that, you all had your own tax office, and you had an individual contract with Linebarger Law Firm. I would imagine that when the Pine Tree tax collector decides to retire, they may decide that it's time to move it. Gladewater, I don't know, because they are a split jurisdiction in 3 counties. And so I don't know. I haven't heard, what their plan is, but, a long time ago, a lot of school districts had their own tax collectors. Cities had their own tax collectors. Counties had their own tax collectors. There was multiple tax offices. That's also back before we had computers and when we were having actually, I can't say we because I'm not that old, but when they were actually doing all of it by hand.
Take action on the contract review. Give us a contract, who would do, contact, who would wait about that. So that was I put that in the deal. Well, he would give me, we already have a contract currently with Linebarger to renew our conversation, just good faith. I would put that on the agenda as well, and he would give us a, either revised or we would continue with our contract, that we currently have.
And it's ready to go, if that's the pleasure of the board.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the contract renewal for collection of delinquent taxes with Linebarger attorneys at law as presented?
Mr. President, also move.
A motion by Mr. McElwain, is there a second? There a second? One more time. Do I have a motion by Mr. McElwain, do I have a second? Mr. Dias, for lack of second. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the termination of tax collection and local agreement with Rusk County?
Mr. President, I so move.
I have a motion by Mr. Williams,
I'll second it.
I have a second by Ms. Amy. Any further discussion? All approved? All opposed? None motion carries. I need a motion to approve the resolution requiring the Russell County Tax Assessor Collector to collect Tatum ISD taxes pursuant to section 6.22 of the Texas Property Tax Code.
I make a motion to consider and approve the resolution requiring the Russell County tax.
I have a motion by Mr. Crawford, is that seconded? Second. I have a seconded by Mr. Skinner. Any further discussion? All approve? All opposed? None, motion carried.
I approve, I'm sorry, I was reading the agenda.
I got you. Do I have a motion to approve the termination of all contracts with Lineberg Attorneys at Law?
Mr. President, I so move.
A motion by Mr. Williams. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ms. Amy. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution reaffirming the adoption of imposition additional penalties to defray the cost of collections?
Mr. President, also move.
A motion by Ms. McElwain. Is that seconded? Second by Mr. Crawford. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? None, motion carries. I need a motion to approve the contract for the collection of delinquent property taxes and legal representation between the Tatum Independent School District and the Prairie. Baselka, Bragg, and Allen. PC, MVWA.
Mr. President, I so move.
A motion by Mr. Williams,
Second.
and a second by Mr. Skinner. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? None, motion carries. There being no further business, the special meeting of Tatum ISD is now adjourned. It is 7:56.